Geek. Noun, informal. Definitions. 1. An unfashionable or socially inept person. 2. An obsessive enthusiast. 3. A person who feels the need to look up the word geek in the dictionary. Harriet knows she's a geek. She's got all of the symptoms as specified by her Oxford English Dictionary. And if that wasn't enough of an indication, someone has helpfully graffitied the word geek across her school bag in bright red marker. Being interested in obscure elements of ancient Egyptian mummification, bandying about words such as ostensibly, and obsessively organising your life into lists wouldn't be all that bad, if it wasn't for the way it made other people treat you. Harriet does have one friend, though. Ever since they were both orange juice snorting, ballet class ruining, tiny would-be people, Nat has been Harriet's best friend. And Nat has wanted to be a model. Which is why, on this otherwise unsuspecting morning our story starts, despite all her best instincts, Harriet is accompanying Nat to the Birmingham fashion show. And despite Nat's numerous assurances that everything will be fine, it looks like Harriet's predictions were right. Before Harriet hardly knows what's happened to her, she's been covered in vomit, caused thousands of pounds worth of damage to delicately stacked accessory stalls, and worst of all, been spotted by a modelling agency. Yes, despite perhaps being the only person attending the entire event who couldn't care less about fashion, it is Harriet that Infinity Models have set their sights upon. And Harriet, they have decided, is going to be their next star model. And after much deliberation, conducted under the blessed shelter of a table or two, Harriet begins to wonder if maybe this isn't such a bad idea after all. Not only could it help to pay off the grand debt she's suddenly accrued, but maybe, just maybe, it might help to change people's opinion of her. Maybe it'll stop people thinking she's such a geek after all. So you might have guessed by now, perhaps by its inclusion in my Books of 2012 video, despite not being a book of 2012, or from the fact that I have an interview on my channel featuring its stupendous author, that I quite liked this book. That I in fact loved this book, from the tips of its opening paragraphs to the tops of its final clauses. I'd not heard anything about it before. I picked it up entirely by chance off the top of a whole pile of proofs I'd been sent. And picking it up, I wasn't planning to read it. I was a busy book reviewer with many books of weighty reputation to attend to. But languidly, I thought I'd spare a glance at an opening page or two. And this little, unsuspecting book gripped me and struck me and floored me. Honestly, those first few pages turned into just reading the first chapter. And then just one more, because really, Stevie, you have work in the morning now. And then, oh fine, finish the thing if you have to, but don't blame me come morning when you're too bleary-eyed to see straight. I honestly couldn't stop reading until there was no book left before me to read. Even then, I went to the internet to whine that there weren't continuing sagas to keep me awake tomorrow as well. This book was just too good for me to resist for even a moment. I started reading it and it was so funny, so witty and so touching that I couldn't stop. So the story is told from our main character Harriet's perspective, and honestly, she is an amazing narrative voice. When recommending this book to people, I say regardless of whether you like the cover, regardless of whether you like the plot synopsis, read it, because Harriet's voice is just so enjoyable. The way Harriet speaks is just so clever. She's constantly drawing up what's happening around her and aligning it to brilliant geeky gems, pedantically and hilariously comparing elements of modern society to ancient rituals, and tromping through the beauties of the thesaurus. Harriet stands back and says things that I, as a reader, have been wishing protagonists would say all my life. Along with that, I found this book amazingly refreshing in so many ways. So many stereotypes I was waiting to happen just never did. Characters like Harriet's friends, Nat and Toby, and above them all, Harriet's stepmother, Annabelle, consistently resisted simplicity. Throughout the book, they continued to surprise you and attain an acute level of realism, just always subverting those tired tropes you expected to box them into. The language of this book is just brilliant as well, constantly moving you to actually laugh out loud. I particularly loved the way Wilbur's character would gush in this overflowing ooze of sentiment and his bizarre pet names for everyone. Honestly, I can't say enough good things about this book. I am recommending it to anyone who comes near enough that I can shove it into their hands. I especially think you'll like it if you're already a fan of either Maureen Johnson or Stephanie Perkins. But generally, I just can't understand how anyone could not love and thus lap up the way Holly tells Harriet's story. Before we end, I have the winner of my Geek Girl giveaway to announce. Absolutely loads of you entered over on my video interview with Holly, and the randomly selected winner is Pen to Paper Blog. Huge congratulations to you, and I will be getting in contact shortly to send you this, your book. With that said, guys, I would love to hear what you think of Geek Girl now that I've given you a summary of the plot and my own reaction to it. Is it the kind of book you'd read? And more generally, do you consider yourself a geek? I think the amount of books behind me testifies to my own self-identification. Anyway, let me know in the comments down below. Other than that, I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.